August coup is recognized as one of the main reasons that the Soviet Union fell. The leader of the country at that time was called Mikhail Gorbachev. He was the final leader of the USSR and became famous for essentially dismantling it. He became leader of the Soviet Communist Party in 1985 and began the reforms of perestroika, restructuring, and glasnost, openness. This is the first time that the citizens of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics had been able to taste true freedom. He believed that to fix the falling economy of the USSR was to increase capital investment, the process where he wanted to improve Soviet technology. Soon, though, he changed his plans and went down a path where he was almost completely restructuring the country. Let's go over the two reforms before we get into the actual August coup. Perestroika, as of 1987, began to decommunify the Soviet Union. It began by allowing privatization of the economy, though it began only open to pensioners and students. Private manufacturing was also legalized. Gorbachev allowed foreigners to open joint ventures in the USSR. Gorbachev continued to enact the enterprise law, which would have ministries lose control over enterprise corporations. This was all, of course, not immediate, although the enterprise law ended up failing. Now, I'll quickly skip through the rest. Greater reliance on markets to set prices, ending subsidies to unprofitable enterprises, free convertibility of the ruble, monetary reform, demonopolizations, privatization of industry, trade, and agriculture, and balanced state budgets. Meanwhile, glasnost was Gorbachev's plan to open information to the citizens of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. He wanted to loosen state censorship of the media in the state. An example of this process was the Chernobyl disaster of 1986. The state newspaper, Pravda, instead of defending the Communist Party and covering up what occurred, the paper used this opportunity to essentially whack the USSR on the back of the head and tell them to get it together. This all culminated in the independence and sovereignty of many states. The Baltic states began to prepare for their independence. The Caucasus went to war with each other, possibly a video on that soon. Moldova seceded. Gorbachev began to work on a new union, where the republics would be autonomous. Now, we get onto the main show. On November 23, 1990, Gorbachev announced his potential new Union Treaty. The new Union Treaty would create what is often referred to as the Union of Soviet Sovereign Republics. Get it? The Union of Soviet Socialist Republics becomes the Union of Soviet Sovereign Republics. Anyway, Gorbachev's plan was to include every republic of the former, yet many republics didn't want to return. For example, the Baltic states and Georgia were extremely against this idea and just wanted their independence. Ukraine only wanted to join if the constitution of the USSR was rewritten. And the current officials in Russia agreed, but only wanted mild reforms. The Russian Federal Republic, or whatever it could have been called, would have allowed all of the other republics to have complete sovereignty, including in what kind of economy they would like to have, except for in military and foreign policy, which would be controlled by the federal government. Obviously, this ruffled some feathers in the Soviet hierarchy. On August 18th, Gorbachev was put under house arrest in Crimea. A group came together to roll back all of Gorbachev's reforms. They called in the State Committee on the State of Emergency. The acronym is the GKCHP. The group was composed of multiple communist hardliners, including Gorbachev's vice president and prime minister. This is when I shall introduce you to Boris Yeltsin. Yeltsin was originally a member of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. In 1989, he was appointed to be the Speaker of the Supreme Soviet of the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic by the Congress of People's Deputies. Not much later, Yeltsin left the Communist Party and was elected president of Russia during the first democratic presidential elections, which were held on June 12, 1991. The GKCHP wanted to stop the signing of the new Union Treaty. They declared that Gorbachev had resigned. This arose suspicion in the USSR. and resulted in many people protesting on the streets, especially in Moscow. Yeltsin took charge and began to transfer power from the Soviet Union to Russia. The coup ended up failing and was dissolved on August 21st, 1991. The main man was Vladimir Khrushchev. He was a Soviet KGB chief and was important in creating the GKCHP. He was charged by the court as one of the main four that organized the coup. He died on November 23, 2007. Valentin Pavlov, another important member in the coup, was released on bail in January 1993. He ended up living until March 30th, 2003, doing many economic or bank-related jobs throughout his time after the coup. Dmitry Yazov was one of the main four conspirators too. Wait, where's that name from? Anyway, he was the last marshal of the USSR. He was also a veteran of the Great Patriotic War, or World War II. He ended up continuing to have an important role in the Russian military, and was even awarded with Russia's Order of Honor Medal by Vladimir Putin himself on November 8, 2014. He died on February 25th, 2020. I really wonder what he thinks of his role in TNO. Oleg Shenin, who was a Politburo member, ended up being named the fourth main conspirator of the coup, though he was not directly affiliated with the coup d'etat. There are many more men who were charged for treason in the Russian Federation, but they were all pardoned on February 23, 1994, by Yeltsin's new State Duma. This coup and its events spelled the end of the Soviet Union and the new Union Treaty in their entirety. One by one, Soviet republics began to declare independence, if they haven't already, and only Russia and Kazakhstan remained. Russia declared independence on December 12, 1991. Kazakhstan was the final republic left in the Union and also declared independence 4 days later. The Soviet Union was gone, and a new era began.
Темная ночь, только пули свистят по степи, только ветер гудит в проводах, тускло звезды мерцают. В темную ночь ты, любимая, знаю, не спишь, и у детской кроватки тайком ты